of the recurrent. The effects, of course, will be clearly clearly shown in the lives of people. Yesterday, Dr. Eze also made that point clear from Labour point of view. The point of view when our colleague from Lagos yesterday was talking about right sizing. Dr. Eze also rightly said, look, the budget can carry the workers we have now if there is budget discipline and if we cut waste. So to me, that emphasis towards infrastructural development and capital, projects is right. So the shift has started. Let's see more of that shift occur. But it does not be at the expense of human capital. Human capital is important. You are not building roads for dogs and goats. You are building roads for human beings who are living, who are eating. And any money, some people have made that point in your studio before, any money spent on human beings is well spent, because that regeneration, that is recreation, that is making sure that the generation of human beings keep on going. So there is no way anybody can or government can go and save money on infrastructure and then at the expense of human beings, and you think that is fair. It is not fair. Even though as we spend with our mind to keep the future going. That is important. That's sustainability. So I see it in that way as the right direction to place emphasis on capital development, but not also at the expense of human beings, as some people are thinking 70-30 ratio is not tolerable. But for now, that's what we have.
All right, Prof, thank you. Let's again get the view of Dr. Issa Emuabino on this. This is the first time we're having such a big percentage of our budget going to capital expenditure. And in terms of being pro-poor, how effective do you think this will be?
I think this is a good development that we're beginning to realize that as a developing nation, which we are told we are, it means we should have emphasis on development. We should lay our emphasis on putting structures together for us to be able to grow, for us to be able to meet up with this Vision 2020 we talk about. It's not the current expenditure that will get us to that level. It is the amount of development you make that will get you to the level of development that you want to get to. And anyway, we are a developing nation. I think the percentage as it is in this year's budget is fair enough, because it's a complete deviation from the former incident where you have the current being over the capital. But I want to suggest that we really need to get it much more. We need to get the capital a lot much more. Maybe 50-50. No, on a very serious note, the capital being higher than the current actually means that the ordinary Nigeria will have more jobs. Because when you look at capital, it's not just buying products and so on. It means that it opens way for people to have jobs, different people. Yes, to have jobs.
But there are competing variables, so we'll get to that. Let's take the views of, sorry, Cliff, Mr. Shettima. Mr. Shettima, what do you think? A capital budget of 30%, the first in our budgeting history.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very interesting and instructive that the federal government, for the first time in the fiscal history of the country, is given the deserved attention to capital expenditure. If you recall that hitherto, it used to be something in the region of 12%. To raise it to a ratio of 30-70, I think is quite commendable. I therefore want to align myself with the earlier speakers that the government deserves kudos for that ratio. However, I will recommend that this 30% should remain as a flow. We should, for the purpose of fiscal sustainability, it should remain as a flow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to Enugu. At Enugu, we have a manufacturer and former chairman of Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Mazi Sam Ohabunwa. You are at home with the budget 2016, predicated on the benchmark of $38 per barrel, exchange rate of 197 naira to $1, and of course we have an outlay of capital provision for 1.5 trillion naira, of course 1.4 trillion for debt servicing. What do you make of this as it concerns manufacturers?
Thank you very much, Nigeria. I believe, while I share the commendation that some of the contributors have made as to the growing contribution of capital to the total expenditure, it is not true to say this is the first time we're doing 30%. In my book, Nigeria, Time for the Evolution of a New Nation, I gave the analysis of how we went. There was a time capital budget exceeded 50%, and then it began to decline. I think it was in 2010 or so that it crossed below the mark and had begun to go down then. It even got to 12, 18%. So I think we are recovering, which is right. And it shows that this is the right place to go. We've written about it, we've spoken about it. We cannot be like the farmer who is eating up his seeds. If he eats up his seeds, what will he replant? And if he can't replant, he is going out of business. So when we keep eating our budget through recurrent expenditure, we are not replanting, and so no investment. And if there is no investment, the poverty levels will go down. So I think from the manufacturing point of view, we are happy that government is responding to what we're asking. We need money to get the infrastructure, we need money to get the roads, we need money to get power, aviation. All these things are enablers of productive activity in the economy. So I think that this budget is in the right direction. The philosophy is fine, which is to support local production and to make us able to, make more contribution to global trade. Of course, that is the way I see it, overall policy direction in this budget. The challenge will be looking at how all the different factors fit in so that we can realize the objective of promoting production. Because right now, the manufacturing capacity utilization has gone down. Consumer index, purchase index has gone down. So much is in the negative. And so we need a stimulus to try and get productive capacity back, and at the same time ensure that the consumer can afford to pay. Because with the high rate of inflation in the economy today, it's becoming a difficult thing for consumers. They are spending disproportionate amount of money in meeting basic needs of transportation, for example, of housing. So being able to purchase products is another issue we're going to be looking at. But I think as an opening statement, I believe that the budget is in the right direction.
Mr. Ohuabunwa, again, if you look at, if you take a cursory look at the aspects of the capital budget as passed by the National Assembly, it appears most of the MDAs had their allocations, either, of course, reduced. If you look at even the mega ministry, for instance, as well as the transport ministries, both have their allocations reduced. Now, how might that affect government's initial projections, and how should they begin to, look at it?
The problem is not actually the size of the budget as much as it is the utilization of the budget. Historically, we've had budgets that were not up to 50 or 60% expended or implemented at the close of the year. And that's why we are making suggestions. While it's okay to have a big size of the budget to capital, can we release the funding at the appropriate time? In my article yesterday in the Business Day back page, I had suggested that Q1 and Q2 cash releases should be made immediately. The budget is signed by Mr. President, because we've lost already one quarter. So Q1 and Q2 should be available. And luckily, we have about 3 trillion naira in TSA. So plenty of money sitting down. There should be no excuse not to back the budget with cash, because that is the issue. The second is to sequence projects and programs in a manner that we can, at the end of each quarter, be in a position to give account of what we have derived. I've also suggested we do a money for value audit to ensure that deliverables are in consult with expenditure. Usually when we talk about budget, we speak about expenditure. I think we should be thinking about deliverables. What are the outcomes? What is the impact on the economic productive capacity in manufacturing and consumer ability to assess those things that are manufactured, because that's the only way his standard of living, his quality of life will grow. If we have all the products in the market and nobody can assess them. So I am speaking that even though there might be nominal reductions, that is not my worry, and it shouldn't bother us. And as everybody knows that each year we've never succeeded in implementing our budget up to 60, 70, especially the capital budget. Recurring budget is usually completely expended, but capital budget is not, because of the tardiness, the time it takes. Now, when the budget is approved, that will start the process of procurement. And by the time you complete procurement procedures, the year is far gone. So I think we need a little bit of speed and urgency, especially in 2016. We've lost so much time, and so much has gone wrong in the interim. Not because of anybody specifically, but because of the evolving global realities of the fall in oil prices, and then our difficulties in managing this fall because of our level of unpreparedness. Many years we've been warned that this will happen, and we just keep going about as if it didn't mean a thing. Then we are confronted suddenly, and we go into a state of panic and begin to adopt certain policies that end up being injurious rather than being helpful. So my point here is that we want this budget implemented and implemented completely. It doesn't matter the amount of money allocated to any sector. Let that money be wisely used, and let us get deliverables. Let us see the impact. It will be beneficial to the economy than having a big budget or a big allocation, and at the end of the year, government is either recovering the money back to the treasury, or it has been misplaced.
Mazi Samo Habonwa, you're talking about deliverables here. And I'd like to come to Professor Obasi, because the 2016 budget is designed to deliver inclusive growth and create significant number of jobs. And when we're talking about that, on general note, we know that there is provision, for social safety nets, as the case may be, to ensure that we're able to invest in the youth, make something available for them to regenerate wealth. To what extent do you think this budget will be able to live up to this?
Well, the provisions are excellent in this regard. Social safety net program was the only, we were told, was the only thing in the budget that was not tinkered. The chairman of House Committee on Appropriation, Honorable Jibrin, mentioned that they tinkered with other aspects of the provision, the proposal. But the 500 billion special intervention was not tinkered. They made that point clear. And if that is the case, then by this proposal, which we pray will become an act when the president signs it, that is a good way to start. And I think what we can think about is the implementation aspect. Yesterday, the Honorable Minister of Information was here. He listed, once again, what he calls massive social intervention. So that's what he says, massive, huge, you say so. And they will list up to 5 or 6 each time they list. They've been doing that. Okay, I have no problem with that. You can have countless number of social safety net programs. In the US, you have 13 federal and state joint, 13 programs.
What steps do you think could be taken to make it effective, result-oriented? Because we provided the figures and all that. How do we, practicalize that to ensure that the objective is achieved?
That's a good question. I am worried at the moment because I don't know the fine details of the provision in terms of implementation. Let me give you an instance. The homegrown feeding for primary schools, we were told, is a joint program, collaborative between federal and state. Yesterday, the Honorable Minister reiterated and gave some details. If I had him, he said 1 to 3, classes 1 to 3 would be borne by federal government, 4 to 6 by states. That's what I had that. I took it down.
Local government.
Good. And I asked myself, as I'm talking right now, can we mention many states? How many states made provisions in their budget for homegrown feeding program in their budget? That's the question we asked. Last time I checked, I stand to be corrected. Kaduna, Lagos. Currently, I'm not talking of those who tried it before, or should have tried it before. Those currently in this budget who made provisions for the feeding program, which is very important for this government. And it is one enabler you will use to really add a lot of values to the economy, because you are attacking nutrition, well-being, you're also, in fact, increasing prosperity. By the time you make children to grow in the normal way, they will add to the society and not get stunted. So if the states who are going to implement their own part of it are not ready, they don't have anything in the budget, then we will have a problem. If that is the case, the federal government has to go to the drawing board. The office of the vice president basically has to go to the drawing board to make sure that implementation strategies are on ground. States must not be allowed to, if we like, we key in, if we don't like. If, for instance, it was designed to have a counterpart funding aspect, which means federal government will say, I'm bringing 1 billion, you now bring 1 billion. So it's a joint program that will commence in each state. But as it is now, is if I am sponsoring for classes 1 to 3, you sponsor 4 to 6. What if you don't have money to, you didn't provide money for 4 to 6? That will be a program. Why I'm plugging off this one particular one is that it is one aspect of the program that government feels is very important. And I also think nutrition is key. And it has been started now in Kaduna. We do know that. We don't want to talk about the problem on the ground, but it's a bold and courageous implementation that the governor of Kaduna State has started. But are other states ready? And how many of them are ready? Before we begin to think it's a laudable federal government that will impact on the lives of the people.
Professor Obasi, thank you. We'll also get to other aspects of the social intervention to you, but let's return to Dr. Isa Emuabino, who of course is from the Nigerian Institute of Highway Engineers. Now, if you take a look or measure previous capital budgets in terms of effectiveness, actual expenditure, and what we have on ground, infrastructure, for instance, over 422.9 billion naira has been budgeted for the Ministry of Works, Power and Housing. From your perspective, how can this budget be effective? And what do you think is the thinking of government, in allocating this huge amount?
I think it's a good thing that, for once, we realize the fact that this infrastructure is very important. And we are therefore budgeted about 422 billion this time around. Don't forget easily, 2015 budget for the Works Ministry was just a paltry 11 billion or something of that nature.
That's just for one ministry?
For one ministry. Now, you need to now put the 3 ministries together. But again, we are told that out of this 422 billion, a chunk of it will actually go to the Ministry for Works, because that is where you really have already a lot of challenges in terms of having to repair and reconstruct and rehabilitate the various roads networks as it were. I noted further too that a road network is actually a catalyst for economic development. And again, we need to begin to look at a way of saving the lives of a lot of Nigeria that have been perished on the road. Now that we have this volume of budget for that sector, my advice would be for that ministry to find a way to prioritize projects and begin to phase out the issue of having to put something on all the projects. And at the end of the day, you are getting nothing. I think we should begin to look at prioritizing projects, pick out the projects that you can handle for 2016. That at the end of 2016, you can say, yes, I have delivered this. And then you go to 2017 and pick out another set of projects that you think your budget of 2017 can handle. In such a way that for every year as the budgets roll by, Nigerians are already beginning to enjoy the benefit of the expenditure of the previous year. If you like, maybe you'll be looking at a performance-based expenditure, where you must spend in order to be sure that within that period you are spending, or as soon as possible, you are able to begin to take advantage of what you spent your money on. So I think this is the best way to go. There are a lot of projects I know ongoing in that ministry.
Can prioritization check deviations and variations, which are usually problems encountered in budget implementation?
Unfortunately, the system as it is has a lot of loopholes in terms of variations and things like that. The way the contracts are presented. And again, that is another aspect I think we should begin to have a second look at. I don't see anything wrong in our going into the kind of contracting that you call performance-based contracting, where you don't have to bother yourself about variation, but you have to fix your time and your project execution within a particular period. Again, the financing for it has to again be within that particular period. And you now eliminate the issues of variations and so on. Now, coming to the issue of prioritization. A lot of the projects actually have spanned over 10 years, 7 years. Projects that were supposed to have been completed within 2 to 3 years. So already there are issues of privatization, variations in virtually all the projects. So I still want to suggest to the government that the best way to look at it, prioritize which are the most viable of those networks now, that you know that once you put your money into, it will immediately begin to translate into what you call the people receiving their dividends of democracy. And people will begin to see you working and feel you working. You can now subsequently do the remaining one and tackle the variation for the remaining one as at when due.
Well, I think I wanted to, make one comment that most of the contractors appear to go into every project with the mind of delaying in order to get variations. And sometimes, what do you think in Nigeria?
Again, that speaks to late or non-release of budget of funds.
Again, I think the issue of when you are in a system for a long time, you will go to know the loopholes in that system and you take advantage of them. So the issue of taking advantage is, we know for a long time now that all the government does at the beginning of when it wants to award contract is to award and give you the 50%. By the next year, they may not even put your contract or your project in the budget, which means we are told to go home for a holiday.
All right, thank you very much there. Let's now go to Alhaji Shettima. Alhaji Shettima, we're talking about this budget. We'll look at it from the perspective of, well, we know that the monetary policy rate by the last MPC meeting increased from 11 to 12%. And this is meant to tighten, monetary liquidity and all that. And we have provision of 1.48 trillion naira for servicing of debts. To what extent, looking at this factor, will this support, efforts to ensure that we'll make this budget, a lot more rewarding and inclusive?
You're taking us into the realm of monetary fiscal cooperation. Now, the MPC, like you rightly pointed out, decided just about a week ago to raise the MPR, which is a reference interest rate for banks to structure their loans in the system, from 11% to 12%. What the monetary authorities are doing is taking a proactive stance in view of the reflationary aspect of the 2016 budget. You recall that we all agreed here that we need a stimulus, and the government has responded by giving us a reflationary budget. The consequence will be when there's a lot of liquidity in the system, inflation will be a problem. And once inflation is a problem, it's within the remit of Central Bank of Nigeria to give monetary and price stability in the economy. So what the Central Bank is doing is referred to as a counter-cyclical measure. By seeing ahead, if this a lot of money is pumped into the economy in the foreseeable future, we are going to witness a rise in general level of prices. So interest rate will rise in order to contain that, and also in order to encourage investors to come into the system. Because once interest rate is rising, inflation is rising above interest rate, investors are not encouraged, because you need really positive interest rate in the economy to attract investors. So I think it's the era of monetary fiscal consolidation or cooperation or collaboration that we're witnessing with that stance of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Okay, the other leg of it is the provision for debt servicing at 1.48 trillion naira. and some people, some experts think is huge. How can we, let's get your take on this.
Yeah, personally, it's also huge. But I want to look at the percentages. Currently, our debt servicing ratio in percentage time is about 10%. And an economy should not be servicing its debt at a rate higher than the rate of growth of the GDP. The provisional figures coming out from both Central Bank of Nigeria and MBS indicate that the 2015 GDP growth rate was 3.2%. And if we are servicing our debts at 10%, it does not give comfort for fiscal stability in the near future. So I think we need to take corrective actions by entering into negotiation with our creditors to reschedule some of this debt and also to negotiate the interest structure of this debt so that we can get into the realm of fiscal sustainability. Thank you very much.
All right.
Prof appears to have an input there.
Yes, a follow-up. For us, to know the difference in this debt. We have foreign, we have local.
Local, yes.
The local one is 1 point something. The foreign is less. That's what I saw in the budget, isn't it? If that is the case, the one we are spending at home will really make the economy grow. If you check that, because I went to the proposal, I went to the budget office website and discovered that the one we are owing our entrepreneurs here, our local contractors, is huge. So which means what we are spending is also to reflect the economy and to make the economy grow. If that argument is to be sustained, that's the way I would have liked to say it. Because if it is foreign creditors, yeah, you can negotiate and think of better terms. But these are local contractors who are being owed for years, if you check it.
All right, Prof, thank you. Let's get back to Enugu. Sorry, Mr. Shatima, we'll return to you. Let's quickly get the perspective of Mr. Uwabonwa in Enugu. He's a manufacturer, and of course, they are critical to, to our economy. The objective of the budget is to revive, reposition the economy. So, Mr. Uwabonwa, in implementing the 2016 budget, especially the capital budgets, what kind of incentives manufacturers like you, expecting or will be expecting from government?
Thank you very much, because I think this is critical. I have always said that when we talk about the budget, we're looking at two sides of the budget. There's the policy side, and there's the income expenditure side. We seem to put a lot of focus on income and expenditure, which is rightly so because of the impact of public spending on total economy. But for business and for the commercial side, we're looking at policies. What are the policies? What are the incentives? What are the fiscal incentives? I think that I say the government's heart is in the right place. Their direction is the right place to go. But we need to get some of the fundamentals true, correct, because investment all over the world is attracted. People have to make deliberate effort. In a global economy where investments can flow freely across borders, it is that environment that incentivizes investment that attracts it more. And I believe that this is the area we need to do a lot more than we're doing. And that is policy related. What are the type of policies that we have? What is the policy that guides our fiscal rates, the import duties, the export surcharges? What kind of things are we doing to promote export? Because in an economy that needs to diversify, an economy that is trying to work itself out of many years of unpreparedness for this kind of global reality that hydrocarbons one day will become disfavored as a major source of energy, we need to promote export. And to promote export means you have to first build up your productive capacity, both to satisfy local and domestic demand and to have export segment of that local production. Today, the productive capacity in Nigeria is weak. It has been weakened by the fact that investment in manufacturing has not been as forthcoming. The economy has been fractured over many years by inconsistency of policies. And many people who have got into manufacturing have had to get into so much problem. If you look at the rate of default in payments to banks, manufacturers come top amongst them. And that's because they borrow long term, but they pay short term. They borrow hoping they will pay at good interest rates, but interest rates are going up. Even the new policies that are being taken to manage deflation will cause a rise in interest rates. And when interest rates go up, you are putting pressure on the manufacturer. The other area is today, manufacturers are having challenge with even procuring the raw materials. You see, a country that wants to promote local production must find a way to support that local industry to develop the capacity to produce. And today we have that difficulty. I'm not even speaking about the known issues of the uncompetitiveness of our products, considering the amount of money we are paying to generate power, how much we are paying to even buy petrol and diesel today. Transportation is killing industry and as well as it's hurting transportation and the general public. So what I'm saying is that we need to look at export expansion grant, which had been suspended for the last 2-3 years. First of all, government stopped giving cash and began to give credit and give you forms to go and clear your goods and get credit, use it for clearing goods and all that. It got a time the customs began to reject them. So, and by and large, that program is suspended, and it was a major impetus for export by local producers. I mean, they were willing to compete at cost and hope that when they got the grant, it would be an opportunity to have some margin which they will reinvest in production. So we need to look at that. We need to look at our foreign exchange policies. We cannot run away from it. We operate in a global system where investments move from where they are better coted to where they are less, where they flow freely. Today, our foreign exchange policy, even though it is made to protect the little that we have, but it's also making it difficult for new investments to come in. And investments are required to build up our product capacity, to modernize our plant processes, to enable us to compete. If we're still dealing with old machineries, old equipment, old systems, we will never be competitive. And it will be difficult to stop the Indians and the Chinese from taking over our market. So there has to be a special focus on local manufacturing. Right now, we have exchange scarcity. Many manufacturers since September last year cannot get adequate foreign exchange. They apply for $1 million, they get $10,000. And it's causing problem. They cannot confirm LCs. They cannot meet existing obligations. They cannot procure raw materials adequately. I think that government needs to, CBN is doing its best in this difficult situation, but it needs to concentrate on manufacturers.
Okay, special thanks to Mazi Samo Habonwa there, trying to talk about what needs to be done to support efforts of manufacturers. Now, we have a whole lot here, but we wish to look at what Nigerians are saying about this very conversation before I come to Dr. Emma Abino. Claire, we have some tweets, and Sunny Michael Omokaji says that the figure of 2016 budget looks juicy. This has always been the tradition, but our major problem is implementation. There should be a standing committee to monitor the implementation of 2016 budget to ensure transparency and efficiency. Though there is a paradigm shift from the past, but capital expenditure ought to be more than recurrent expenditure.
Of course, Cliff, Sam also has a second tweet there.
Okay, he's talking about the state of Nigerian economy is a serious depression. Mr. President should append his signature and hit the ground running.
And okay, Ibrahim Tudu tweets, with budget discipline gone, indiscipline gone, I beg your pardon, with budget indiscipline gone, he tweets, the next obstacles are waste and the devil-cold implementation. Nigeria is now on the right track. With budget discipline, Nigeria will be great. That's Ibrahim Tudu tweeting. And of course, our Twitter handle is right there on the screen, NTA at NTA GMN. We'll expect your tweets coming. Well, thank you. We'll move on now to Cliff. You had a question?
Yes, let me go to Dr. Abino, because Nigeria, in the index of doing business, we know that infrastructure development is very critical. And having the right funding, you know, to support infrastructure development has always been a huge problem. And it's estimated that about $2.9 trillion is required, or that is when converted is 460 trillion naira, you know, is required in the next 30 years to be able to develop our infrastructure. When we talk about this, what are the creative ways available to Nigeria to be able to ensure we realize this objective? When we talk about infrastructure here, power, road,
infrastructure development in the real sense is not expected to be 100% funded by government money. The development of infrastructure in the various sites are the areas where you can begin to have participation, private sector participation. These are areas where people outside government should be able to put in some money and then yield that. Don't forget too easily the issue of the telecommunication in Nigeria. It's an infrastructure. We know the level it was before, and then we brought in the various players now, and the thing has got celebrating its successes. Various other infrastructure like power is being tested. There are new discos, or there are new private sector now in that power sector. We've not seen much of what they are putting, but we do hope that as time goes on, they will now begin to show that their private sector efficiency into the system. The issues of money spent on infrastructure is like preparing a foundation for your economic growth. So no matter how much you use in preparing your foundation, the better foundation you have for economic growth, the better it is for you. In short, it is said that it is not the economy that makes, it's not the infrastructure that makes the economy, but it's the economy that makes the infrastructure. In essence, it is as good as, your economy is as good as your infrastructure level is. You can improve more on that infrastructure when you now realize that it is a catalyst for your economic growth.
Then what are the creative, you know, ways available to us to generate the required fund to support infrastructure development?
There are a lot of funds available, I believe, in the international market that we can begin to look at. But most of those funds always target areas for which they can easily have a collaboration, and they are sure they won't be bothered with the normal government bureaucracy in the ministry. What I'm saying in essence is that most players will prefer to work with a parastatal, not necessarily directly with a ministry. For example, in the road sector, we have been trying as much as we have to begin to look at development of Federal Road Authority and other agencies in government that will actually kickstart and begin to run with the development of the infrastructure in the road sector. That is still ongoing. It cannot be done. Okay. But other sectors actually push in those infrastructure, and they can get the fastest growth as it can happen.
All right, Dr. Abino, thank you very much. Prof, I know you've been a very strong advocate of social safety nets to address problems of, the indigent. And in this year's budget, 300 billion naira has been provided for the vulnerable. Some 5,000 graduates will be trained and deployed as teachers. There's also the provision for, the conditional grant scheme and all that. In your perspective, how might this help to draw back on unemployment statistics?
Thank you, Claire. The provision is, like I said earlier, very excellent, well intended. The problem that we're likely going to have, like I also mentioned earlier, is how to design the social protection program to really get to those it is meant to. Anywhere you implement social protection programs, what you find out is that abuses occur. But if really, as we are going from the planning stage, because World Bank was brought into this, and you know World Bank has a lot of experiences in this area, both in social protection programs specifically and also in employment, where ILO is also involved. So, and the World Bank has, over some time now, advertised for a social protection expert, and I'm sure by now they must have engaged that person. If that person is working with government and they are designing a very comprehensive social protection policy, which will include both the employment area. And that's why if you monitor the news, you know that there was a time Minister of Labor and Employment was also into the show. So what it means is that it's a comprehensive package. For each of them you're doing, you might be targeting certain things, but the aspect that is dealing with employment is good. You have the 500 graduates. You even have the non-graduates aspect. You also have the women that are going to be trained. That aspect is there. So these three areas are key to employment generation. You know, in the past, we are used to what I may call recurring rhetorics on employment generation. Every year, parastatals will tell you, oh, we are going to generate 1 million jobs, 2 million jobs. That year goes, nobody monitors how many have been gotten. And the next year, they say, oh, we are going to give you 1.5 million jobs. The rhetoric continues. That rhetoric is not to be encouraged in this time. So whatever they have specifically earmarked should be seen to be implemented. Yesterday, the minister mentioned 370. He mentioned it here yesterday.
Okay, Prof.
Okay, that aspect has to be seen to be fully implemented. And if you do that, you've added something, and 500 people, you've added something, the women, you've added something. So it is all implementation issue now that is waiting for us.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you so much. Let's now, because time is no longer our friend, and we'll begin to get the closing statement from Alhaji Shettima. What, in your own suggestion, given your experience, are the necessary monetary policies vis-a-vis the fiscal policies that is required at this time to ensure that we're able to, effectively realize inclusive growth, create jobs, and wealth for Nigerians?
Thank you very much. I like the point that has been made about the exchange regime that is stifling productivity in the economy at the moment. You recall that the central bank throughout 2015 was under a lot of pressure to defend the value of the naira, and that is why there was a plethora of monetary or exchange rate policies. But the downside of it has been that manufacturing specifically is finding it difficult to import spare parts, machineries, and raw materials. And the dilemma of the central bank must be resolved somehow. So my advice to monetary authorities is that they should look more at the supply side than the excessive or seemingly excessive demand management they embark on throughout 2015. One supply side that recommends itself to us at the moment is that we have a lot of diaspora inflow coming into the economy. The Central Bank of Nigeria can engage the diaspora Nigerians to route their inflows through an offshore bank in such a way that Central Bank of Nigeria will remit the naira equivalent to their relations back home. Also, you have non-oil exporters and even oil exporters that have domiciliary accounts. You recall that some weeks ago, Central Bank lamented that about $200 billion, $20 billion stashed away in domiciliary accounts. This can also be mobilized. However, given the liberalized foreign exchange regime that we are operating, what Central Bank should do is to engage the holders of these domiciliary accounts and buy off the foreign exchange from them at a premium. That's something beyond the normal market rate. in such a way that the foreign exchange will be readily available for the government instead of it flowing to the banks and to the private sector and supplying the BDC, from which we see skyrocketing rates of the dollar in the economy.
Mr. Ibrahim Shatima, former Deputy Director in the Central Bank of Nigeria, we'd like to thank you for the perspective that you have brought on our conversation. Very, especially the last point you've noted. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much.
We also like to say a very big thank you to Dr. Isai Emuabino, who is always you always oblige us whenever we reach out to you. He's from the Nigerian Institute of Highway Engineers. Thank you again for sharing your perspectives, especially as it concerns infrastructure.
Thank you very much.
Cliff.
Well, actually, we also have a seasoned economist, Professor Obasi. Professor Obasi with Isaac.
Public administration.
Oh, he's an administrator by excellence,
Public
so to say. Professor of Public Administration from University of Abuja. Professor Isaac Obasi would say special thanks to you for being part of this program.
Thank you.
And in Enugu, we'd like to say special thanks to Mazi Sam Ohuabonwa, a manufacturer and former chairman, Nigerian Economic Summit Group, for finding time at very short notice to be part of this discussion. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you. God bless.
Time to take a break. Don't forget we have a second leg of our conversation coming up right after this time out.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Goodness is getting better. Introducing new exciting packs from Hollandia Yogurt. Goodness just got better. Hollandia Yogurt. It's all good.
From the House of Chi.
Goodness is getting better. Introducing new exciting packs from Hollandia Yogurt. Goodness just got better. Hollandia Yogurt. It's all good.
From the House of Chi.
Goodness is getting better. Introducing new exciting packs from Hollandia Yogurt. Goodness just got better. Hollandia Yogurt. It's all good.
From the House of Chi.
Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors. For a shining clean and fresh toilet.
Wow.
You should also take the Harpic
all-in-one challenge.
Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors. For a shining clean and fresh toilet.
Wow.
You should also take the Harpic
all-in-one challenge.
You get 3 kinds of moms. The paranoid mom, the cautious mom, and the Dettol mom. She only trusts Dettol antiseptic liquid to protect her family from up to 100 illness-causing germs, and it's recommended for cuts and scrapes. Which is why you can worry less and love more. Don't just be any mom, be a Dettol mom.
Short one, take one.
Enjoy the energy of malt and goodness of milk in Hollandia Malt and Milk Drink. Great Niger Shake, Hollandia Malt and Milk Drink.
From the House of Chi.
Are you aware that the death percentage attributed to Lassa fever cases is currently put at 43.2%, a figure considered very high? Lassa fever, an acute viral illness characterized by high fever, muscle aches, mouth ulcers and bleeding in the skin, is harbored by rats and spread to humans via the urine and droppings of rats. To prevent Lassa fever, avoid any exposure with rodents, rats, as well as food and objects contaminated with rat secretions and excretions. Report all suspected cases of Lassa fever immediately to the nearest healthcare institution. Help prevent Lassa fever. This message is from the federal government of Nigeria.
All right. It is the end of the road for Nigeria's quest to participate in the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations after Super Eagles lost to Egypt in Alexandria. Now, don't mind me, I'm smiling not because I'm happy about it, but it's because I forewarned Mike, who will be with us in a short while, and I heard about this. But I didn't watch that match. Musba Adanwahab did, so he tells us what happened.
For the second time in a row, Nigeria failed to qualify for the Continental Showcase after winning the trophy in 2013. Nigeria needed an outright win in the encounter to rekindle their hope of making it to Gabon in 2017 after being held to a 1-1 draw in Kaduna. But the hope of the dogged Samson CSR tutored boys was finally dashed in Alexandria. Daniel Akpeyi was called to duty a couple of times in the first half, and the Super Eagles could not break the defensive wall of the Pharaohs. The crackers continued in the second half until in the 65th minute, when Ramadan Sobi finally finished a scramble attack in the Eagles' 18.
Now, could be a chance. Is a chance! Oh, it's trickled through then from Ramadan Sobi. They couldn't deal with what wasn't a well-connected shot, and by the time it came through the defense, Daniel Akpeyi had very little time to react, seeing it late.
Rearing to go again, at least for an equalizer, the Super Eagles could not find the answer. Almost did not count for Victor Moses as his long-range effort only strolled past the goal line.
Oh, Victor Moses finds the inside of the post, and somehow it goes back into play and curls out for the goal kick. Where in the world?
And the Pharaohs of Egypt had the last laugh for making it after missing the last 2 editions. Nigeria has now failed to qualify for the tournament for 2 consecutive times.
This is still Good Morning Nigeria, and to look at that match between Super Eagles of Nigeria and Pharaohs of Egypt, we have sports analyst Mike Enahoro. Mike,
good morning.
I know you were there throughout the 90 minutes and the extra time. What really happened?
For the first time in a long time, I saw Nigeria play entertaining football. I saw us wanting to win so bad that it hurt the players on the field. And for the first time, Nigerians at home could feel what the players on the ground were feeling. Yes, we did not qualify. Egypt is only qualifying for the first time after 3 tries. So for us again, we should take this. We are at the drawing board in the middle of a transition. Young players are coming in. For the first time in 10 years, we now have 3 qualified goalkeepers. We have Carl Ikeme, we have Daniel Akpeyi. This is back to the days of Best Okedengbe, Emmanuel Okala, Eriko, and Fregene. I'm saying this to Claire. If she didn't watch the match, I am happy with the progression of the Super Eagles as a team. We may have lost and not qualified.
What did we lack in that match?
In that match?
Yes.
Just two things. The capacity to have been able to figure out how to beat the Egyptians. We still don't have that magic formula. How to beat the Egyptians. The Egyptians, when they score you, they kill off the game. We needed to have been shooting from distance so that we cannot dribble our way through a 9-man defense. What we need to do right now is we just need to learn to put this group of young players that we have together and focus on Russia 2018.
Okay, some say that we actually, lost out of this qualification in Tanzania.
Yes.
And looking at the last 2 matches handled by Coach Siasia and that the whole qualification series.
Yes.
What do you have to say?
It's from the administration side. You cannot, the playing staff did what they can do based on what was available to them. You don't win or lose a match these days in modern football on the field of play. It's how do you prepare? What's the plan? What's the global strategy? And what do you want to come out with? Right now, let's just accept the fact that AFCON is gone. We are at the drawing board. We don't have to go back to it. We are there right now. What we need to do from here on to take us to Russia 2018 is the key. In AFCON, by next year, November, we're playing another qualifiers again for 2019. So let Nigerians not despair a lot about AFCON. We will be back. But one of the things that we must take out of this is the lessons of administration, the lessons of proper planning, the lessons of funding. We cannot rely on government anymore. The lessons of funding and understanding that the Super Eagles is a brand that can meet the yearnings of Nigerians and be put in private sector space and be managed appropriately. We have to get money from somewhere else other than government. Because if you look at this, it is going to affect the way planning was done for this team.
Okay, let's quickly look at that winning goal.
Yes.
I just saw it now.
Yes.
I didn't see it. You predicted a win for us.
Yes.
We didn't win. That was a very weak shot.
Yes.
Yet it was able to get in between the legs of the goalkeeper. Goalkeeping for us.
Yes.
Do we still need to rejig? Yes.
Yes. I don't think we need to rejig the players. You look, we've discovered about 4 new solid players for the next generation. Alex Iwobi has dedicated his future to Nigeria. We saw the resurgence of Victor Moses. We've got a young man who is playing as our left back. We have even our local league is producing players. Azubike Okechukwu is there, Etebo Ogenekaro is there. We are now bringing in a new set of young Nigerian footballers. So let's keep this crop of players together and focus on the future.
Mike, I always like your enthusiasm and patriotism when it comes to football, especially with the Super Eagles. But thank you. We didn't win. Well, thank you for the patriotism. We'll see you.
Players taking one shot at me at Nigeria.
All right, let's move on now to the foreign scene. And we understand passengers of the hijacked Egypt Air flight all safe. And of course, other trending stories from around the world. Oyemi Ajayi has them.
Thank you and welcome. The hijacking of a domestic Egyptian flight that forced it to divert to Larnaca Airport in Cyprus ended with all hostages being released and the hijacker surrendering himself for arrest. The hijacker, who is an Egyptian national, has been identified as Saif el-Din Mustafa. Egypt Air flight MS-181 was taken over by Mustafa, claiming to be wearing a suicide explosive belt, but security personnel had refuted the claim. After a morning of tension, the hijacker was seen walking down the steps of the aircraft with his hands raised as he surrendered himself to the police. He was said to be unstable in his demands, as he demanded to see his ex-wife and later saying that Egyptian prisoners should be released. The incident has been ruled out of terrorist attack, but government says the hijacker could have personal motive. Now, still in Africa, a U.S. government aid agency has pulled $472 million of funding for a Tanzanian electricity project after criticizing elections in Zanzibar. The Millennium Challenge Corporation, MCC, said the vote was neither inclusive nor representative. The October election for president of the semi-autonomous archipelago was cancelled halfway through the count. The opposition boycotted the rerun in March, which incumbent President Mohamed Ali Shein won with 91% of the votes. The money was intended to be spent on improving the availability and reliability of electricity in rural areas. This was in addition to $700 million the U.S. had given to the Tanzanian government in 2008 to improve transport, energy, and water. Now to Europe, the CEO of the Brussels airport had warned that it will take months to reopen the airport fully as staff returned to the site a week after it was targeted by Islamist bombers. An outface said he hoped the airport would open at 20% capacity today, but it will take months before running at full capacity. 35 people were killed and 96 more are still in hospital after bomb targeted the airport and a metro train. The airport is carrying out tests to assess whether it can resume flights. EU institutions reopened on Tuesday amid beefed up security measures. Increased searches on bags and vehicles are being introduced at the European Parliament, while many events organized by non-EU bodies have been suspended. And that's it on the foreign. You informed as more events unfold. Thank you.
Our Ono Yeyemi Ajayi there, keeping us up to speed with developments on the foreign scene. And from there, we move to us on entertainment. It's Throwback Wednesday. Some music enthusiasts say the 80s and 90s were the greatest decade ever, depending on your age. And if you don't think so, you were not born yet. Gufan Shaji on Us on Entertainment brings memories of songs you were sure to hear at every Nigerian birthday party decades back. Let's hear her.
In Nigeria, Auntie Give Me Cake was one of the party beats for younger generation in the late 80s and early 90s. You wore your best timey backs and patterned leather cut shoes or bottom downs with a boy tie and cute loafers. Then when it came to dancing time, they scattered the dance floor with the Running Man, breakdance, the Alf, the Cabbage Patch, the Milli Vanilli, the Roger Rabbit, or just random dance move. Never Gonna Give Up, Rick Astley was a particular DJ favorite at 90s birthday parties. With his strong bars and beats, it was great to do the Running Man, the Alf, and the Cabbage Patch too. Back then, this song was a classic. One of the self-proclaimed tall boys' less raunchy songs, like it's like Bonita by Madonna. Wukombotti even, Chaka Chaka's song, always had them jumping out of their seats and to sing along. And then, when it was time to cut the cake, Yvonne Okwari came with Happy Birthday. Raskimono's rumba style came with a dance move that even very little kids could do. After the seeded reggae song Tikumi, Alexito released Wala Colombo, which had more African beats and vibe and was a party favorite.
You come while of my days, and you tell me say you need me, baby you trick me so.
With the shoulder-pumping dance move, this album was a hit at every party. The 80s kid not only memorized lyrics of the song, but beatboxed the guitar riffs. And no matter where you lived in the country, these songs were replayed by almost every local DJ.
Oh, Gufan Shaji, I'm sure you fall in the class of those who were not born then, because I remember, of course, Raskimono, every Edna Ogoli, Ukumbo, even Chaka Chaka, and of course, La Isla Bonita was played at every party.
Well, I'm happy you're remembering that, you know, possibly from stories we told you, you know, essentially because that was at the beginning of the
time to clear the weather. Let's see what the weather outlook is for the rest of the day.
Hello, glad to have you join us on the weather segment. The visibility over the extreme part of the country is expected to improve into hazy and sunny conditions, as southwesterly are likely within part of that region. And onto the forecast, we anticipate sunny and hazy conditions to affect that region in the morning, with cloudy to partly cloudy conditions affecting the central cities, except Jalingo-Ibi axis, that have prospects of isolated thunderstorms within the mid-morning hours. The coastal cities, Eket, Calabar, Benin, Lagos, will witness some isolated thunderstorms within the mid-morning hours as well. Later on, we anticipate a better build-up of weather activities, especially over the southern cities, to give rise to localized thunderstorms in some cities, with isolated thunderstorms affecting high grounds of the central cities, while the conditions over the extreme part of the country will remain the same within the forecast period. For temperature forecast, stay tuned. That's the weather forecast from Nigerian Meteorological Agency. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.
And thank you to, and just before we go, once again, I'd like to say thank you to Gufan Shaji for, of course, bringing back those wonderful memories, wonderful memories. I'll leave here to go back and, of course, listen to some of them. I know Cliff.
Well, actually, Claire, I remember, you know, those days in Lagos, you know, your younger days, you know, you used to flow from one party to the other.
I beg your pardon.
I mean, birthday parties. No, you really enjoyed it.
Don't paint me in black. I wasn't a party goer, but I sure enjoyed
but you enjoyed the music.
I enjoyed good music.
Okay, in the bedrooms.
Yes, because of course I was in the radio, so I was used to all the, you know, LPs.
I get that. I get that. I get that.
And all that.
No, there's a party in the radio house. You know that.
Time for us to go. Time for us to go.
Well, actually, it's been a very good day, and I'm sure you enjoyed this package on Good Morning Nigeria. And Claire, we've really had a good day looking at Budget 2016, the second part of it, to be able to let Nigerians know what to look forward to. And I'm sure it's a good budget that, if well implemented, it will be best for Nigeria. I am Cliff Ayos. I'd like to say special thanks to you for being there for us. And I know tomorrow is another day, Claire.
Of course, we can't exhaust all there is to talk about in the budget. We'll just keep our fingers crossed that this time around, of course, as has been widely talked about, implementation, of course, will be quite different. There will be, you know, a prompt release of funds and proper implementation. We'll thank you for being a part of our show today. We'll ask you again to join us same time tomorrow. That's 7 o'clock.